I've been working this same patch of earth for longer than most folks have been alive. And every February, when the ground's still cold but the light starts changing, I find myself thinking about potatoes again. Potatoes taught me something important early on, something I had to learn by forgetting them. See, last season I had a bed full of them right here, and when I harvested, I missed a few, small ones, what we call volunteers now. They come back on their own if you let them, and that's how I know this soil remembers. Now, most people think potatoes are just potatoes. You can buy them anywhere, so why bother? I used to think that way too, back when I was younger and hadn't tasted the difference yet. But once you pull a potato from soil you've been working for years, still warm from the sun, and cook it that same evening, well, you understand. The flavor's different, the texture's different. It's hard to explain until you've done it. I grow mine from seed potatoes mostly. There's one variety called Clancy you can start from actual seed, which is unusual. But most of the time you're planting a piece of potato itself. I get mine from a farm up north that's been doing this longer than I have. The varieties I keep coming back to are dark Red Norland, produces well here, never lets me down, and Yukon Gold, which works for just about anything in the kitchen. Then there's the Sarpo family. Sarpo Mira's been around a while, but they've got newer ones now. Sarpo Shona, Sarpo Una. I'm trying those this year. After enough seasons, you start wanting to see what else is out there. The planting part's simple, but it took me years to stop overthinking it. If your potato's about 2 or 3 inches across, that's perfect. Don't cut it. Just dig down 4 or 5 inches. Drop it in with any sprouting eye facing up, so it doesn't have to work as hard, and cover it. If you've got a bigger one, you can cut it. Just leave 2 or 3 eyes on each piece. I dust the cut with ash sometimes to help it heal. Then you wait. About 80 to 120 days, depending on the weather, and you'll have more potatoes than you started with. I've experimented with laying them on top of the ground and covering them with straw. That works too if you want a lot of them. Now, as we get closer to spring, most people start thinking about tomatoes and peppers. I do too. But I've learned to rely on brassicas through the winter months. They're the ones that keep you fed when not much else will. This year's been warmer than usual, though. My broccolini is already starting to flower, which tells me it's time to think differently. There are 3 brassicas I've come to trust, no matter what the weather does. The first is red Acre cabbage. I've grown a lot of cabbage over the years, and this one's sweet, dense, and it doesn't crack. I can leave it in the ground for months without worrying. That's rare. Cauliflower's trickier. Most varieties don't like warm spells. But twister cauliflower handles it better than others, and it wraps itself up in its own leaves, which keeps it white and clean. That's what you want if you're used to seeing the ones at the store. Broccoli's even harder because most of them want to flower the moment it gets warm. After trying a lot of varieties, I've settled on Chinese broccoli, cayenne they call it. It produces more stems, more leaves you can actually eat, and it doesn't mind the heat. If part of it flowers, you just cut it off and keep harvesting from the rest. The garden taught me that lesson after I lost too many plants trying to force something that didn't want to cooperate. If you're somewhere with real cold in February, snow on the ground, frost every morning, you're not planting anything outside yet. But it's the right time to start things indoors, and eggplant's one of them. People forget about eggplant in February because summer feels far away. But if you don't start them now, you won't have them when you need them. I'm growing Black Beauty this year. Eggplants do fine here, but they take their time, both before and after you put them in the ground. You need to start them 10 to 12 weeks before your last frost, which for a lot of us means February. And they need warmth, real warmth. 70 degrees minimum, but 80 to 85 is better. I use a heat mat. After your last frost passes, wait a few more weeks until the soil's warm enough, then transplant. If you start now, you'll be picking eggplants by late summer. I'm up north where it's still freezing and snowy, zone 6A, so nothing goes in the ground this month. But I've got trays under grow lights, and one of the first things I start is snapdragons. They like cold weather, which means they bloom early in spring, take a break when it gets hot, then come back in fall. For a climate like mine, that's valuable. When everything else is dormant or dying off, snapdragons are still going. I grow the tall, maximum blend. Last year was my first time with it, and I liked not knowing what colors I'd get until they bloomed. It felt like a small surprise in the middle of the season. The trick with snapdragons is moisture and light. The soil needs to be soaking wet when you plant them, and you don't bury the seeds. They need light to germinate. The seeds are tiny, almost like poppy seeds, so you'll get more than you need. I just tap a few out of the packet onto the wet soil, mist them with a spray bottle, and leave them alone. In 10 to 15 days, they come up. Once they're an inch or two tall, I thin them down to 1 per cell. When they hit 3 or 4 inches, I pinch the tops off. That makes them branch out instead of growing one tall stem, and you get more flowers. I love watching the bees work them. They crawl right inside the flower. It's shaped like a dragon's head, that's where the name comes from. And they disappear in there for a moment, then come out covered in pollen. If you're looking for something to start now that'll bloom early, snapdragons are worth it. Down in central Florida, February is mild. Our average last frost is the first week of the month, so this is when things really start moving. One crop I always plant now is watermelon, which sounds strange for February, but hear me out. Watermelons love heat and humidity, but they don't like too much water while they're ripening. In Florida, winters are dry, springs fairly dry, but summers drenched. Monsoon rains, sudden storms, it's constant. So you have to grow watermelons in spring before all that water comes. I start them right after the frost risk passes, and I make sure they finish before the rains hit. This year, I'm trying something different. Cream of Saskatchewan, which is a Canadian watermelon. I know that sounds odd, but it was bred for a short season, just 85 days. In Canada, they're racing against frost. Here, I'm racing against rain. Either way, an early variety helps. When I look around my winter garden now, I see green everywhere. But a lot of it isn't something I can eat right away. Garlic, wheat. It's all growing, but it's not ready. So for this in-between time, before spring really arrives, I rely on 3 greens that handle both hot and cold days. First is Levea spinach. It resists disease and doesn't bolt as easily when you get a warm spell. If it does start to bolt, you can still eat it young. Then there's Dwarf Blue Curled kale. It's got that blue-green color, and the curly leaves make it tougher, more resilient. You can saute it, throw it in soup, or use it in salads. It's not as tender as some other kales, but it's reliable, and that matters more to me now. And for anyone in the southern states, Top Bunch 2.0 collard greens. I've had this one in the ground for 6 to 8 months without issue. It handles cold, heat, humidity, everything. If you want a green that just works, that's the one. By the end of February, I'm starting pepper seeds. Peppers need about 10 weeks indoors before your last frost date. This year, I'm growing a sweet bell blend. 3 different types, some yellow, some orange, some red when they're ripe. They all start green, then change color as they mature. It's nice to watch that happen. Peppers need warmth too. A heat mat's necessary, 70 to 90 degrees for the soil, but 80 to 85 is ideal. Keep them warm for the 3 months before transplanting, and you'll have strong plants. I'll put these in the ground in late May and wait for that color change a few months after. I start all my peppers in February. They take a long time to grow, and I want them big enough by transplanting time so I can start harvesting in late June or early July. One of my favorites is Megatron jalapeño. They're huge, about 4 inches long, and we use a lot of them. Fresh on pizzas and sandwiches, pickled, canned, in salsa and chili. The fact that they're oversized means I get more from fewer plants. The key with peppers is keeping the soil moist and warm. I pre-moisten the trays, plant the seeds, then put a heat mat underneath with a humidity dome and a grow light. Pepper seeds are finicky. Even in a 70-degree room, they need that extra heat or they won't sprout. In the greenhouse, the morning sun's already warming things up, and I can smell tomatoes even though it's still February. We put a few in here over the winter, but now I'm thinking about when I can start the main crop. You can't put tomatoes in the ground until after your last frost, but they take a while to get going, so you start them a month or two ahead. They need more care than leafy greens, more nutrition, more attention. I've got a few varieties picked out this year. Red Pride, a classic 10-ounce tomato, resistant to a lot of common diseases. If you've had trouble with blight or alternaria, this one might help. For container growers or anyone with limited space, Cherry Falls does well. It's prolific and doesn't need much room. But the one I'm most interested in is Golden Jubilee. About 3 inches wide, good for sandwiches or salads. It's resistant to a few diseases, and it won an All-America Selections Award back in 1943. I like trying the old varieties. They've been around this long for a reason. I've grown as many as 43 different tomato varieties in one season before. If you want to go wild with them, do it. If you want a few solid performers, these are worth considering. I like a garden that feels full, packed with greenery, flowers everywhere. Right now I've got nasturtiums coming up as volunteers all over the place, and there's still a Mexican sunflower blooming behind me, which surprises me, but I'll take it. Flowers last longer than most annuals, and you can leave them for months without much fuss. I think of them in 3 groups. First, the small ones that fill in edges. Lobelia is good for this. It trails, doesn't get big, 6 to 8 inches, and it comes in blues, pinks, purples. The variety I'm trying is called Cascade of Color. It's perfect for filling in the edges of raised beds without taking over. Then there are the medium-sized ones, zinnias, calendulas, that sort of thing. This year I'm trying Gora, which is native to parts of Texas. It adds movement and texture, and I like plants that sway in the wind. It gets about 4 feet tall, so it's good for the back edge of a bed where you want some height, but not too much. And then there are the vines. Sweet peas, or in this case, butterfly pea. The vines can reach 12 feet, so you can let them climb a tree or fill an empty trellis. I use my trellis for cucumbers and squash later in the season, but it's empty now, so this works. The flowers are blue, and you can use them to color drinks or food. There's some interesting chemistry with the pigment. It's used in fancy lemonades sometimes. I like plants that do more than one thing. Down here in Florida, the planting list for February is long because we're just past our frost date. If I had to pick one thing I can't skip, it's the last succession of watermelon radishes. They're a winter radish, which means they take longer, about 45 days instead of 20. I plant them now so they finish before spring heats up and makes them bitter or too spicy. From a cooking standpoint, watermelon radishes are hard to beat. They're colorful, crisp, sweeter than most radishes. I pickle them, use them in kimchi. I've got a little kimchi bed going right now. Napa cabbage, watermelon radishes, carrots. It'll be good when it's ready. Last year I grew cayenne peppers and made my own red pepper flakes and cayenne powder. It was the first time I'd done that, and it's made a real difference in the kitchen. Anything you grow yourself tastes better, But having those spices on hand has changed how I cook. So I'm growing more this year. I start cayenne in February because they take a long time. The hotter the pepper, the longer it seems to take. I want to be harvesting them by July. Hot peppers can be discouraging because they sometimes take 3 or 4 weeks to germinate. Don't let that worry you. Just keep the soil moist and warm. Heat mat, humidity dome, plenty of light. That's what they need. I'm growing a cayenne blend this year. The seeds are easy to plant, just a 1/4 inch deep. I poke a small hole, drop in 2 seeds, cover them back up and mist the top to keep it wet. Then I wait. Could be a week, could be 3 or 4. That's just how cayenne peppers are. In February, I also start onions. A lot of people start bulb onions in January, but I start bunching onions in February. Warrior bunching onions specifically. It's a true green onion. It won't form a bulb. You get that long, slender white and green stalk. I fill a tray with soil, scatter the seeds across the surface, sprinkle more soil on top, about a 1/4 inch, and let them germinate. They don't need a heat mat. They'll grow in cooler temperatures. When they're about the size of a pencil, they're ready to transplant. I can put them in the ground a month before my last frost, if the weather cooperates, and I'll be harvesting by early summer. This bed looks good. I'm pleased with it. But the plant I'm about to talk about isn't in it yet. It will be in 2 or 3 months. And staying with the theme of my other picks, it's another member of the nightshade family, peppers. Every year is a little different with peppers. Some years I've grown 60 varieties. Some years I've narrowed it down to 6. It depends on what I'm focused on. Last year I grew about 10. This year I'm planning for around 20. The question I'm asking myself now is, what am I going to do with all these peppers? Because even 1 plant per variety gives you a lot by season's end. So I'm picking varieties I can dry, roast, preserve, turn into salsas. First is Pasilla Bajío. When it's fresh, it's called chilaca. When it's dried, it's pasilla. It's used in moles, and it's a classic pepper. Also quite beautiful. Next is shishito. I grow at least 2 plants every year, no matter what. It's my favorite for snacking. Blister them in a pan for 10 minutes, make a quick aioli, and eat them warm. But they're also incredibly prolific. 1 plant can give you hundreds of peppers if you take care of it. You can prune it, put it under shade cloth in summer, protect it with a cold frame in fall, and it'll keep producing. And then there's New Mex Heritage Big Jim. It's a hatch chili with improved flavor and thicker flesh, which is what you want for roasting. Any pepper's a good choice this season. There's so much you can do with them, fresh or dried. I've been doing this long enough now that I know what works and what doesn't. The garden's taught me most of what I understand about patience, timing, and listening. If you stick with it long enough, the soil starts to feel familiar. The seasons start to make sense. And every February, when the light changes and the ground's still cold, I know exactly what needs to go in next.